Amy, you see LA is imitating Chicago this time around. We're ahead of the learning curve. We had pro-Hamas protesters shut down the Kennedy before they had pro-Hamas protesters shut down 110. How about that? Liel Leibovitz is the editor-at-large for Tablet, and he joins us now. Liel, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Hello.
So I wanted to get you in this discussion we were just having with John Tammany from RealClearMarkets.com about college campuses, because you were teaching at NYU for a time, weren't you?
Sadly, I was. Made some bad life choices.
Yeah, right. So here's the argument as it goes from Tammany and some others. Conservatives or people who are classical liberals and believe that the university should be a free marketplace of ideas and so forth. Don't be so concerned. We're overwrought when it comes to what's happening on college campuses, whether it's DEI being the hiring protocol, or whether it's universities that spawn pro-terrorist undergrads, as we've seen since the October 7th attack. The market, let the market work. These universities will fall under their own weight. They'll, proverbially hang themselves. And there's competitors, particularly in the digital age, that will spring up to replace the Harvards and the Penns and the MITs of the world. And so as they diminish their product, it provides incentive for somebody else to enter and provide a better product. And so we shouldn't spend so much time hand-wringing over what the product that we're seeing on display coming from the Ivy League or other elite universities is. What's your view?
Well, I wish, it's almost Christmas time. I wish I could agree with such a rosy, cheerful assessment of reality. But I want to respond by sticking to the same framework, because I think it's a good, smart framework, strictly the framework of money. Here's what number that I can't stop thinking about. In 2001, the cost of university education was 23% of the median annual earnings in America, which is high but manageable. By 2011, that number, a decade later, that number had reached 38%. Student debt doubled. That number continues to rise and rise and rise. The economic factor is precisely why I don't agree with Mr. Tammany's solution, because if you look at what happened to colleges and universities in America in the last decade and a half or so, you would be shocked, but perhaps not surprised to learn that they became really big businesses. NYU, for example, is basically an Arby's. They sell franchises like McDonald's or a Wendy's.
Yeah.
You have NYU in the Emirates, NYU in Shanghai, no problem. If you have a
extension
few
campuses and right.
Exactly right. Now, that is a really hard proposition. Chinese money, Emirati money, that is money that's really, really, really hard for the American marketplace of ideas and of dollars to grapple with. So you're seeing these universities grow larger, grow wealthier, and grow into even more malicious, pugnacious elements in our society. As you said, educating terror-supporting young Americans. It's unbelievable.
Well, right. And it also, whether you wish it were different or not, the reality is that many people from these elite universities are going to go into positions of influence and authority in government and out of government. And when you have people behaving the way that they do, who are in charge of our cultural and civic institutions and much of our government, varies state by state to some respect, but still, then you're creating social division, and that doesn't make for a stable society, and that doesn't make for a particularly welcoming environment to the free enterprise system. And I think maybe there's an inability to connect some dots here. Like these systems don't interact separately; that they're necessarily intertwined.
They're completely intertwined. And look, this is the thing. I think it's really kind of difficult but essential to understand. When you look, you started off the segment by saying like pro-Hamas demonstrations in LA, pro-Hamas demonstrations in Chicago. You would stop and you would think that if this was truly just a small skirmish between two faraway nations in some dusty corner of the world in the Middle East, there would be really a reason to focus so much attention on shutting down major American thoroughfares or trying to burn the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center or disrupt the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. The truth is that the real goal of the so-called, Palestinian liberation movement isn't necessarily just the eradication of Israel. It's basically the eradication of the United States. It's exactly the disruption of our fundamental way of life, which is why the universities and these institutions are so important. It's important to them to raise a whole new generation of people who actually fundamentally and foundationally don't believe that free market, free ideas, religious liberties, et cetera, all the values we hold so dear are important. And they marched, as the saying goes, they marched on the English department. They did very well for themselves because they did succeed in raising a whole generation of people who, as exactly as you said, are going to elite positions after they're graduating, who foundationally and fundamentally dislike this country and everything about it.
Yeah, but also, too, I mean, it's amazing. All the Ukrainian flags in our neighborhood now are being replaced with Palestinian flags. But the thing that's disconcerting to a lot of people is now we're starting to see the Hamas flag. And that's different than the Palestinian flag. So can you explain that?
Well, it is and it isn't. First of all, when you just look at it on the surface, you say to yourself, okay, yes, well, I understand one is a terrorist organization designated as a terrorist organization by the State Department in 1997. The other is some amorphous thing, some entity, people who are, wishing for a state, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at Gaza, and you look at Gaza in the last 18 years since Israel withdrew completely and gave, the Palestinian Authority complete control over Gaza. Gaza, controlled by Hamas for more than a decade now, is a state for every intent and purpose. It is a Palestinian state. It has its own, army. It has its own municipal justice. It has everything that it needs. Controls borders. It has everything that it needs. And so it is now decided to commit itself to war, not just against Israel, but against everything that we hold dear here in this country. And so to me, when I see these two flags, there's really just a very minute difference between the so-called Free Palestine cause and I Heart Hamas cause. They're essentially the same thing.
Well, and the description you just provided really goes to the conversation we're having about American culture, too, and America's role in the world. It's sort of this folly that a lot of free market conservatives, ostensibly like me, subscribe to, that if we're peaceful pluralists, we don't have to worry about totalitarians.
Right.
But that ignores the fact that totalitarians can be expansionist in orientation. They can come for the peaceful pluralists. And that leads me to this piece that you wrote in the journal, which I enjoy because I always like to, get historical examples that are relevant today, the history we don't know. Tell us about the Maccabean Revolt and how that is relevant today.
Well, one bright day many years ago, this is under the Seleucid Empire, the sort of, the successors to the Greeks. They decided that they want to practice something very akin to the, kind of like globalist vision of the American progressive left, which means we're going to espouse these ideas of, kind of diversity and inclusion and equity. But in fact, we're just going to ask everyone to succumb to the exact same cultural belief system. And they came to the Jews and they said, well, now we need for you to virtue signal and sacrifice to Zeus and tell us that you believe the same thing that everyone else believes, basically the ancient equivalent of changing your profile on Facebook to the Ukrainian flag or, putting up one of those hate has no home here signs. And so the Jews, God bless, and said, we're not going to do this. And a priest named Mattathias said, not only am I not going to do this, but if you're going to force me to do this, I am going to respond forcefully. And so he killed not only the fellow Jew who was about to happily make the sacrifice, but also the Seleucid, the Greek kind of high officer, sparked a major war against the empire, which the Jews, though they were small, yet feisty, miraculously won. They reclaimed the temple, they purified it from idol worship, and they set up that famous menorah with just one little jug of oil that was supposed to last for one night, lasted miraculously for 8 nights, which is why tonight we will celebrate the 8th and last night of the festive holiday of Hanukkah. And let me tell you, I think for Jews in America right now, this holiday feels different because I think a lot of Jews, especially a lot of Jews who may have been liberal Jews, progressive Jews, who thought that they had a real happy home and everyone on their kind of college campus or everyone who subscribed like them to the New York Times or everyone who shares their lovely progressive views, they're all just part of this gorgeous rainbow coalition. They discovered after October 7th that is currently not the case, that in fact their neighbors are much more likely to march in pro-Hamas demonstrations than they are to just check in on them. And I think they're returning to this age-old Jewish wisdom of saying, we're small, we're mighty, we're standing athwart the rest of the world, and we'll continue to do our thing and preach, as we always have, the dignity of difference that makes a mosaic as gorgeous as America truly worth having.
Liel Leibovitz, editor-at-large for Tablet, tabletorg.com. Liel, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
The Answer.
It happens every year. Winter. Delivering and receiving supplies and getting people where they need to go can be impossible. Keeping your business doors and gates working properly to keep out the extreme weather is a major concern. Your business can't afford a loss of income or productivity. Think ahead this winter and call Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. for your commercial door maintenance and security tune-up now. You can't always plan when your doors break down, and it always seems to come at the least convenient time. Industrial Door Company will ensure your doors, grills, gates, and dock equipment are working to specification and give you advice on how to increase the life of your doors. Go online to see a range of products and services at industrialdoor.com. Call anytime, 847-258-5620. Their team will be there before the extreme cold weather causes financial losses for your company and assist in your time of need. Since 1982, the Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. takes care of your doors so you can take care of business.
By the way, tabletmag.org. Tabletmag.org for Liel Leibovitz. I think I misspoke.
Okay.
All right. Food for the Poor campaign. Our Food for the Poor